pain and fear. Now, these are two things that we really don't want to talk about, and we don't like to even focus on, but I really think that in order to break through to success, we have to pass through them, don't we? So, it's a Wednesday afternoon. We had a huge hurricane in Pennsylvania. How many of you heard about this? Okay, we had a flooded basement. It was an absolute mess. David has had back surgery, and so he's not allowed to lift anything, and so that leaves it to moi. Okay, moi is now lifting bags of stuff, okay, throwing them over my shoulder, and I have pain, and I can barely even breathe. So I decided to have a pity party. And I went up to bed, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm telling you, it's pain, and I'm just starting to fall asleep, and David opens the door and walks in with this big smile on his face, and he says, "Honey, I've got some good news." To which point I look up, because I'm going, at this point, I can barely breathe. And I look up at him, and I know he's got something to tell me. And he says, "Art Jonak just called, and he wants you to speak at the Mastermind event." Now, if you can imagine, I am laying in bed, I can barely breathe. And all I can tell you is, at that particular point, this is what I saw. Getting bigger in my room. Okay? I see Jordan Adler, okay, who is now 12 feet tall. I see Tom Big Al Schreider sitting in the middle of this auditorium. Okay? I see all these superstars. Donna Johnson, Randy Gage, Art Jonak. Okay, and David's with this big smile. Aren't you excited? Okay, I'm telling you that at that moment, I experienced fear like I've never had in a long time. Because as Randy mentioned, most of the speaking that we have done has been in front of our group. But now I'm imagining 81 countries, companies, 40 different countries, and I'm imagining to myself, is this getting bigger and bigger? How many of you have had that kind of fear at different times in your professional life? Okay? So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I do? Do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I do this? Do I not do this? Can I do this? Am I able to do this? And the interesting thing is, that evening, I had a chance to hear Oprah Winfrey interviewed by Sheryl Sandberg, who happens to be the COO of Facebook. And they're talking and going through, the whole transition that Oprah has made recently. Okay, from owning or being a presenter and having her own TV show for 25 years? So my ears pick up, 25 years. I've been in this industry, 25 years. I've been in this profession. And she's going through and talking and so forth about the experience. And then Sheryl says to her, "What did you go through when you made that decision to leave your show to move into that space of owning your own network?" And I see Oprah's eyes open up, and she says something amazing. She said, "I am laying in bed one night, And she said, and suddenly this anxiety starts to fill my entire body. My stomach goes into a knot. And she said, I sat there for a minute and I thought about it and realized that was fear. She hadn't had fear in 25 years. At that point, I go, yes! That was the answer I was looking for. Okay, if Oprah has fear, then Anne can have fear. Okay, and I suddenly realized that, you know, I can take that fear and move it. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so I start thinking about, you know, the whole idea of what we want to talk about today. And I start to get this, you know, thought in terms of not only I have fear, but maybe, just maybe, some of you have experienced fear. Maybe there's fear. Think about this. What is the biggest fear that you've come across in your business? Maybe it was picking up the phone and calling the chicken list. Okay, the chicken list. You know, that list of people that you would really like to talk to, but you are so frightened of talking to them. For whatever reason, you're imagining that they are as big as that Warren Woodward picture, okay? And they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and what happens? That phone gets heavier and heavier. Okay, well maybe some of you may also have the fear of what? Rejection. Maybe some of you, okay, are imagining every person that you're going to talk to is going to tell you no. Okay, and you're going to be sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, every person I'm going to talk to, there might be a no coming. A no, a no, a no. I've got to tell you that in my first event that I had invited 30 people to that first event. One of them showed up. Just one. Okay? And I have to tell you that at the same time, I was also incredibly frightened of speaking in front of a group. Even though I had been a teacher, okay, teaching is one thing. Speaking in front of a group is something else. Presenting, maybe it's the presenting aspect of it that frightens you. Okay, but we all have to get through that some way, somehow. Okay, as you heard earlier, Dana said, it's with practice. The practice helps with the fear, doesn't it? Okay, we do it once, and I'm telling you, the first time, this is what that room looked like. 30 people invited in New York City, and it rained. Do you know what happens in New York City when it rains? Okay, nobody goes out. Okay, and the phone starts to ring, and people start to call, and they start to make all these excuses. How many of you know what I mean? Okay, these crazy excuses, why they can't come, and then most of them, the others, didn't even bother calling. But that one person showed up. She was my best friend. Okay, she had no excuse. Okay, she was going to be there regardless. Okay, she comes to that event, and remember, this is the very beginning. So now I'm giving a presentation to put the world to sleep. Okay, it was so boring. I mean, I couldn't wait till I was finished. It sounds like a few of you have had the same thing. Okay, and at the end of this presentation, oh, and my sponsor was there, and as I mentioned earlier, he can't explain the comp plan. Okay, so he's looking at me to explain it, and I just started. Okay, the teacher of me comes out, and I start to explain the comp plan that I don't really understand. And my girlfriend's sitting there smiling because she's thinking, if she's doing it, I'm in with her. Okay, and she says at the end of the presentation, I'm in, I want to do this business with you. Okay, so what did I have? I had a 1 for 1. But let me tell you what I saw. Okay, she leaves, you know, we've now enrolled her, put her into the business and so forth, and she leaves, and we go back to David. David's standing there with this big smile like, congratulations. Okay, as I close the door, I fall down into a pile of diva craziness, okay, hysterically crying because the other 29 seats weren't filled, okay, to which point he's looking at me down there, okay, and thinking to himself, oh, here we go again, okay, and then he says the magic words. Okay, the magic words were, honey, you can always go back to Handy Associates. To which point I thought, I never want to go back to Handy Associates. Okay, that's being a prisoner in a 40-story office building working 60 to 70 and 80 hours a week. Okay, how many of you know what I'm talking about? If you do, you've been a corporate prisoner. Okay, this is a picture of a corporate prisoner some 25 years ago. Okay, somebody who sits in a cubicle about 8 by 10, all right, something like 70, 80 hours a week. We're told when we can get up, when we need to be there, when we cannot get up, when we can take a break, when we can go to lunch, and more importantly, when we can go on vacation. Okay, and I realized that that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I did it. I felt good about it. Okay, we had a nice run during this corporate. I learned a lot of great skills going from being a teacher into corporate America. But I had something else I wanted to do. And I had a dream. And I had some real life visions. Remember I said earlier, I wanted freedom. Okay, that was not freedom. To me, this is what was freedom. Okay, the opportunity to go out on the weekends, get on a horse, and ride in this little mini farm that we had. So my short-term goal at that particular time when I started into network marketing was to create that ability to be wherever I wanted to be, when I wanted to be there. How many of you have done the same thing? Okay? So I started thinking about the fact that could I go back to Handy Associates, which I didn't want to do, or could I then persevere through this trying time, okay, to have the kind of lifestyle that I really wanted. I wanted freedom. I wanted the ability, and I think there are a lot of people in this room who start with that idea and with that hope. Okay, we want to be able to create a better lifestyle. We want to be able to create a better opportunity. And we want to free the other slaves around us, don't we? Okay, well, there was a little piece in between. It's called the Lincoln Tunnel. You see, going into the Lincoln Tunnel, okay, into New York, was the horror of going back to the 60 to 80 hours a week. Okay, leaving, going out of the Lincoln Tunnel, okay, was freedom. So every time I drive through the Lincoln Tunnel, you know, I have this image of where freedom takes me and where the lack of freedom. Okay, Monday mornings, we're starting all over again. You know, we decompress over the weekend, take a deep breath, start all over again. Okay, I wanted to change my life. Now, a lot of you are probably, or some of you are probably in that same situation. You're looking for ways to change. Okay, you're looking for the right mentors. And I was lucky early on to reach out to those people that I saw as wonderful people and mentors. And one of those mentors, as I got this little group going in New York City, and we started to build, I remember one of the comments he said to me one day, he said, Ann, you've got to start to think nationally. Okay? You can't just think locally, you got to think nationally. Now, I must have looked like a deer in headlights. Because I have to tell you that at that point, I mean, I was so excited that I had a group growing in New York City. And I must have thought, well, he must mean New Jersey, okay? Or even Pennsylvania. He can't possibly, nationally, who do I know in Alabama? Who do I know in Utah? Okay, who do I know in Montana? Who do I know in Florida? My whole life was within New York. But you know how funny it is when somebody cares enough about you and puts that idea into your brain, okay, and you embrace it, all of a sudden what happens? Okay, opportunities start to open up and things start to change. Okay, and I think that that's something that Dana was talking about in terms of what messaging do you put out there and what do you show your people? Okay, and what activities are you doing? Well, suddenly that's what started to happen. Okay, the amazing thing is that they started to show up in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and down all the way down the East Coast and across, to the West Coast and all the way up to Canada. Amazing things started to happen. But then I realized that I had reached that short-term goal. I thought that was the most important thing at that particular time. And then somebody said to me, you know what? In order to really achieve what you want in your life, okay, you're going to have something bigger. And I thought, bigger? What could be bigger? Okay, I'm in New York City. We went to Pennsylvania. We went to New Jersey. We went down to Florida. Okay, well, something bigger started to occur. Okay, and that was the decision to think in terms of a strategy. And that through those strategies, and there are really 3 strategies that took our business and my focus into an even bigger place. So the first thing that happened was I realized we needed a purpose. Okay, something that would give us a drive and an idea that was bigger than what we had at that particular time. And it was interesting because I had decided to put a little tiny ad. Remember, this is before the internet. This is before Facebook. This is prehistoric time. And I put this little tiny 3-line ad in the New York Times. Okay, and then I sat and waited. And the phone started ringing. The weirdest people in New York started to call. It was the strangest little ad. It said something like, part-time, full-time income opportunity. You remember those? Okay, health and wealth. Okay, we will train you. Well, naturally, everybody that called were what? People looking for jobs. And how crazy was that? And I'm talking about really strange people. But out of that, all those phone calls, there was a dentist from Israel who was looking for an opportunity to take back to his country. Okay, now comes the fear because I'm thinking, can I really do this and work with this guy and show him what needs to be done? Okay, and really empowering him, and I'm seeing the whole country and all kinds of possibilities. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I'll get David involved. So I bring David in, okay, to this meeting with the dentist, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I realize, it's just a guy. He has a dream. We're going to connect. Okay, and the most amazing thing started to happen because I think if you realize this in your business, it only takes one to change everything. It only takes one. And what happened was an amazing transition. An amazing transition in the way we did the business and also an amazing transition in what we saw in our lives. And what happened was we started to work together in building this business in Israel. And I tell you that story because it's very close to my heart. It's really meaningful to me personally. I always wanted to have a major purpose in my life. And I never realized it wasn't the small little goals. You know, I achieved the goal of working out at the farm. I was able to, stop and quit the job, not work the 60, 70 hours a week. You know, that was the short-term goal. But then when we started to develop this business in Israel, during a time of very big transition, if you remember back in the early 90s, okay, late 80s, early 90s, there was a war going on. There was a crisis going on there. Okay, we developed relationships with people over there and families. And we gave them hope. And we brought the network marketing industry to that particular country. And then the war broke out. And we had all these people, excited about this opportunity, excited about this business, and we couldn't get to them. And they're sending me pictures, okay, of them sitting in gas masks with our products. Okay, now, if you think that you're going to be tested, okay, with your purpose, I will tell you, you will be tested. Okay, nothing changes until something moves. Let me show you this. Nothing changes until something moves. So the war goes on, and we're on contact, and the war is over. Well, next week I'm going to go to Israel, because that's what I envisioned. And I can remember calling my mother on the phone, and I said to her, Mom, I'm leaving for Israel. And she looks, I can imagine her going like this with the phone, and she says, didn't they just have a war there? So I said, yes, but that was last week. You talk about fear. If you have purpose, there's no fear, is there? Okay, so I jump on a plane and I go over there and we start to work and we start to make magical things happen. One person, everything changes. Okay, so there we start to build an international business. We start to talk to people globally. We start to have an entirely different vision of where we're going. Okay, I start to be meeting cultures of people, not only back in my own country. Remember, I'm living in New York. Nobody speaks English. Everybody around me now is, potentially open to a business internationally, because everything in my mind changed. Okay, life starts to take a new meaning when you have purpose. So that's the first strategy on how do you overcome fear. The second strategy, in terms of how you overcome fear, has to do with your passion. Now, you heard Nick talk about that earlier today. Okay, he talked about passion. He talked about the excitement internally that's going to get you out of the house, calling people, making appointments, going out late at night, driving 3 hours to an event, okay, getting on an airplane, going and visiting people, working with your new people, your team. You've got to decide, where is it? What is it that gets you up in the morning? Like Randy was talking about. You jump out of bed, you're excited about the day. Okay, because a mentor of mine once said to me, if you set yourself on fire, people will come to watch you burn, baby. Okay, is that not true? Okay, so if you're excited about what you do, and your enthusiasm, and you're out there helping people, and you're changing lives, okay, and you're making a dramatic difference in the people and the lives and the communities around you, well, guess what happens? Your passion fire goes up, doesn't it? Okay, and that was the second thing that excited me about this industry and about this opportunity. Not having to sit in that little cubicle anymore, okay, now having a purpose, having the passion fire turned on. Okay, so take a spot check of where you are right now in your life. Okay, take a gut check. Okay, are you feeling the purpose? Okay, is that purpose enough to drive you to do things in your life and your business? Okay, to reinvent yourself, as Nick was talking about earlier today. Or as Dana was talking about in terms of messaging. Or as Randy was talking about in terms of belief. Okay, as Oren was talking about, in changing, okay, the resolution and conflict that might be going on in your own personal life or in the lives of your team. Okay, purpose, passion. Okay, knowing that what you're doing is making a difference. Okay, and you get up in the morning and you go and you do your regular day job if you have to, and then you go out and you meet with somebody in the evening and you're driving somewhere and you're grabbing a sandwich, okay, and you're leaving your family at home and you're coming home late at night and you're getting up the next morning, okay, and you're kissing your kids in the morning and you didn't get a chance to tuck them in last night, but they understand because daddy and mommy have passion and we're making a difference in people's lives. Well, guess what? The third one is, okay, the third strategy not only is purpose and passion, but I call it posture. Okay, it's not so much the way other people see you, it's the what you do and how you see yourself that makes all the difference. Okay, I heard Nick saying this morning, and I say the same thing, I am the CEO of my own company. How many of you are the CEO of your own company? Okay? Okay, let me hear that again. All right. See, I'm the CEO of my own company, so I take full responsibility for my business. Now, I also had to work on myself. I came from corporate America, okay? We were cutthroat corporate America people. I had to learn the idea of working with other people to help you. Okay, I had to learn, I had to dumb it down, actually, okay, to be a little more conscious of not being so aggressive. New York City, you know, that does it to you. And so what I found is that in the posture, it was a matter of some personal development. How many of us are working on that? Personal development, 30 minutes a day. Okay, first thing in the morning. What we listen to first thing in the morning. What we listen to late at night before we go to bed. What we're reading. Okay, that makes a difference. It starts to make that transformation, doesn't it? Okay, the second thing was something my mother said, and I have a very smart mother. Okay, she has been a guiding light in my life. And she said to me, Ann, when you go out into the world, put your best face forward. When you wake up in the morning and you're talking to people, okay, you cannot sound like you just got out of bed. Okay, she had been a realtor all of her life. She was dynamic. I'm telling you, she had a smile on from the minute she got up in the morning until she went to bed every evening. She also said to me, people will think you're smarter if you look like you're put together. People will think you're smarter if you look like you're put together. Okay, image. Okay, think about it. If you're out there talking about $1 billion industry, $1 billion company, because every one of us wants $1 billion company, don't we? Okay, with 1 million product consumers, don't we? Yeah. All right, then we have to go out into the world looking like that. Okay, so people see us and say, there's a successful person that's going somewhere. They have the confidence. Okay, they have the energy. They have the dynamics. They're going somewhere. People want to go somewhere with someone who's going somewhere fast. Okay, that's where the leadership comes in. When we talk about purpose, passion, and posture. Now, we talk about posture. I have to tell you that again, you know, I would go to all these events when I first started in the business, and I can remember going out to one of my first events in Long Island, and I get out there and the place is packed, okay, and the person that was hosting the event invited me to come up and speak. Come on up, Ann. Come up on stage, and I am a nervous wreck. Okay, do you ever be so nervous that your top lip connects to your teeth and you can't get it down? Okay, and he asked me to explain something about the product. So I explained about the product, and I'm standing there, I'm looking at all these people, and then suddenly I realized, what a responsibility. Because people came a long distance to drive out to the end of Long Island for that event that evening. There are people that came with hope. There are people that came to check out what's going on with this group and with this business and with this opportunity. And I stood there and I thought to myself, I have a responsibility. I have to get rid of me. I have to get rid of my fear. Okay, so I took a big gulp of water and I stood there and I looked out into the audience and I gave them the best possible talk about these wonderful products. Because that's what I was asked to do. Because I knew that there were people in the audience who were also prisoners of 40-story office buildings, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And they drove all the way out there to hear about this. And as I thought about this all along in the last 25 years, I mean, we all go through challenges. We all go through challenging moments. We all go through times when we don't know whether we should quit, you know, because it gets so challenging or personal stuff comes up. But last week, I was in Italy. And I listened to one of our leaders, who happens to be one of the new leaders in our organization. And they brought him down the center aisle, okay? And they had lights shining on him, and there was confetti thrown all over. And there were 1,000 people focused in on this couple. And you had to see the look on this man's face. He was 12 feet tall, walking down the center line with his wife. And he came up on stage. Okay, you talk about posture. But he told the story that on his journey to this place, as a young father, he had been working 3 different jobs. He would go to a job in the morning, he would go to a job after he finished the first one, and then he had an evening job. He'd come home, go to sleep, and go and do the same thing all over again. And he brought up this wonderful and beautiful 25-year-old daughter and stood on stage with her for the first time ever. She had never wanted to be involved in network marketing and never wanted to hear about it. But because he was being recognized that night as a new diamond, she came to that event. And he stood up on stage and stood in front of everyone and apologized to her. Apologized to her for not being around when she was growing up. Okay, and it was an emotional moment in that amazing hall. And the entire auditorium was quiet, and you could hear, because everybody was in the emotional moment of what was going on with that family. Okay, and he turned to her and he said, "That will never happen again. Okay, we have something so special now between us," and she's joined his business. Now, I think to myself as I'm sitting there, what if I had quit? What if I had allowed the fear that I felt in so many different situations that came up in our business and in my own personal life? Okay, we all have challenges, don't we? We all have challenging moments that come up. Okay, I've had an amazing year this past year. My mother passed away last October. And I got to tell you guys, I don't know whether I had a hard time getting past that. That was a tough moment. And it's been a very emotionally charged year. And now I understand all my friends that have been through that process, more than I ever imagined, and all of my team members that have been through that process. In the midst of all that, David had back surgery. Okay, in the midst of all that, we had a flood. Okay, so when I come back to this opportunity to come here and talk with all of you today, I sat back and I started thinking about fear and pain. Pain and fear. And things that we have to do in order to pass through those painful moments. In order to be richer. In order to be more empathetic. In order to understand what the people that we are approaching are going through in their lives, especially today. Okay? In order to understand what it takes to become somebody who can take other people along this journey. And then I thought about the responsibility today and in this amazing event. And I stood there and I thought, I learned a lot from Oprah Winfrey and the transition that she went through in her growth and her journey. And then I realized that there's a power here in taking pain and fear and turning it into something so magical. And that every single one of us in this room can do the same thing. And that is dance with your fear.